I'm loving this look, this Korean K-pop star look.
Yeah, I mean, these are not easy to do.
Oh yeah? Well, they look
Yeah,
really nice. You should do them more.
I'm
You
I'm
kind of look like Zoe.
I know I identify the most with her.
Oh yeah.
I'm nearly 60 years old, so like I think that this look is kind of not my vibe.
What are you
But
talking about?
I'm so inspired by the movie, I had to do it for today's call.
Well, you look amazing.
All right, okay, so welcome. Which episode is it? 36? Remember.
You are correct. Yeah.
But anyway, welcome to the Mom and Eric podcast. Do 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 do. We're going up. Okay. So today, we are going to talk about the movie, the global phenomenon, K-pop Demon Hunters, which has been number one, which is Netflix's number one all-time movie, all time. Just beat out,
Oh, wow.
yes, all time. Although it beat out Red Notice, which is doesn't say a lot about Netflix's quality control or the sophisticated taste of their
Was
audience.
that the previous holder? Title holder?
Yes.
What? That's
Yeah.
not real. That's a fake. That they faked that.
They
They
must have faked it, but it was apparently it held the top spot for 8 weeks in a row. And now K-pop has held it for something like 13 or 14 weeks in a row. But the other thing about K-pop Demon Hunters is it's also generated the only number one song hit on Billboard, which is Golden. And so they've submitted it now for Academy Award consideration. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. All right. So just a bit of backdrop. Um, Eric and I watched K-pop Demon Hunters together when we were on a family vacation, and the only reason that we're not recording this together is because we just ran out of time in
because
terms
we
of
were enjoying family time and
we
we
were
didn't need
enjoying
to
him.
work,
We didn't need to work, which is
excessively.
this is our job.
Not that this is work, not that this feels like work, but I mean, it is for me.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So today, though, I pitched this out of left field when we were watching a ton of movies up in Tahoe together, like tons and tons of movies. That was really fun watching all those movies together.
We watched so many.
We watched so many.
Saw both Terminators for the first time, or the first two
Yes,
Terminators. They were really good.
yes. But in the middle of all of this, or towards the end rather, we squeezed in K-pop Demon Hunters, which has been in just so much dominating the cultural zeitgeist, like so much. It's the numbers it's doing, it's kind of like a Frozen, is what I would compare it to. You know how parents were driven crazy by Frozen and all their kids were singing Frozen nonstop? I think that K-pop Demon Hunters has gone
I
completely wild.
Yeah, I think this. I mean, I think this has better songs than Frozen does,
Yeah.
and they're less annoying too. And they are in line with like a contemporary musical art form.
Yes.
And they adhere to that to a fault. That's like the biggest draw of this movie, I'd say.
Yes. Do you want to do the plot synopsis or should I?
I could do it. It's pretty simple. Super popular K-pop group Huntrix is super popular K-pop group, but also in secret they hunt demons
Nice
that
demons.
steal the souls of people in the world. So they have to sing songs so that they can kind of create this like force field and like
Like the
and get rid of the demons. But on the side they like have to just clean them up and like and battle them without people knowing. But they also just make really great songs. And then as a uh plot to stop the girls from creating like the ultimate force field that would get rid of demons forever, the Demon King decides to send a boy band a K-pop boy band group of demons to basically take over their whole industry
Their fandom,
and their
basically.
fandom, yeah. And then and yeah, get all the humans they want. And this is hard because Rumi, the main singer, is part demon, which she hasn't told her co-stars, her
Bandmates.
members, bandmates. And so she feels embarrassed about it, so she wants to get the honeymoon, which is the ultimate force field, done as soon as possible, so that they don't have to know that she was a demon. I'm actually kind of impressed with how many details I'm able to. I did scroll through the movie this morning, so it was a little easier to remember. I think I'm actually going to start doing that now because it helps me remember, things I liked and things. But anyways, yeah, that's basically the plot of K-pop Demon Hunters, which is very self-explanatory title, actually.
It is it is a very self-explanatory title. It's so interesting to me how many people say that they could not get past the title in order to actually watch the movie. So a lot of people, that title was so self-explanatory that a lot of people have said, there's no way that I'm going to watch a movie called K-pop Demon Hunters,
Well, the
or
movie's not for them.
right. They were saying it's not for that. But then a lot of people who said, well, when I finally got past the title of K-pop Demon Hunters, I actually thought that the movie was really entertaining and well done, And so yeah. So do you want to start with how you felt about the movie? And then because obviously I have a lot to say because I've been a little bit obsessed with it since we
Yeah,
watched.
sure. I mean, the most uh I don't have the most grand things to say about the movie. I think it was enjoyable. I would say the most effort they poured into was the music, and the songs. Like these are completely original for the movie, as I understand it. And I think they were performed by an already existing K-pop group twice, right?
Hmm.
And that's already like a very popular female K-pop group. And
Except for Rumi's voice was performed by EJ,
okay.
who is a really well-known songwriter, and she wrote most of the music for this. She wrote most of the songs for
Oh,
this.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as somebody who doesn't like K-pop, like I don't listen to it. And what little I have listened to, I don't really enjoy because I'm just not like a poppy
You don't like pop in
enjoyer.
general.
No, as somebody who doesn't really love K-pop, I actually was pretty surprised at how I enjoyed the music, and how it was interwoven with the story, and in a way that I would say just is a it just meets it satisfies like the criteria,
Yes. Yeah.
like this has to work, and it does work. I personally don't think it goes like above and beyond, that. But it makes, whoever is like really into those elements specifically, like they will 100% come away satisfied.
A couple things on that. Number one, when you were talking about how the music was really well done, you really enjoyed it, even though you're not a pop fan. It reminded me of the main criticism of Amelia Perez. How everyone was like, "Why do they have those stupid songs in that movie?" Like nobody understood the purpose of the songs in that movie. So in order to pull off a movie where the songs actually align so well and are integrated so beautifully with the plot line, I think is actually a feat because it was so noticeable when it wasn't done that
Yeah,
way.
so it turns out when you have songs in a movie, you have music, it should sound musical
Musical.
to a certain degree, okay? And K-pop fucking clears that over Amelia
Amelia
Perez.
Perez.
Jesus Christ. I'll shit on that movie till the day I die. Anyways, yes, continue.
But the other thing is, when you said that you didn't have anything to say about it above and beyond, it reminds me of the theme that you and I often talked about, which is this culture. What cultural understanding do you bring to the movie? So what
Yeah,
cultural understanding?
yeah.
So, what is so interesting to me about this movie is that I too was a lukewarm K-pop fan. I am nothing like certain members of our family who can tell you every possible detail about BTS. I do have a mild interest in Blackpink because I do like girl bands when they manage to hit it right, and I also like I sort of, their solo efforts, Blackpink's solo efforts have really hit the charts in terms of like pata pata, like they're big on TikTok dances. I do
Yeah.
a lot of TikTok dances, so I'm a little bit more familiar with Blackpink, but there's a huge world of K-pop and also K-drama. K-drama is also not a huge part of my repertoire, although I've watched a few. So I did not bring so as I said in my letterbox review, I really thought that this movie was not really that much for me. And then I actually ended up in listening to the music and in watching the movie and in also diving deep into all the explainers that are happening online about Korean culture and how this ties into Korean culture. I'm actually like getting so obsessed with how much this movie was for me. So I really really loved the movie, and there's a part of what I loved about it that I do want to talk specifically about with you because you know animation so much more than I do. But I'll say that the biggest issue for me was this whole cultural identity of being Korean and being female. And so it's so echoed in the music, it's so echoed in the character development. But basically, the creator of K-pop Demon Hunters, Maggie Kang, said that she wanted to tell a story where the females were both powerful, like they were warriors, but that they were also flawed. So she really fought hard for the parts of the movie where they looked goofy, they were wearing silly pajamas, or they were like eating ramen until their eyes bulged out, or and stuffing themselves. And so she really, really wanted to hit home this theme that women could be powerful, women could be powerful, they could be inspiring, but they could also be vulnerable and they could have their flaws. And so the lyrics of Golden in particular, I kind of get all choked up when I think about this because I've listened to that song so many times. But the lyrics of Golden, just the symbolic significance of that really hit me afterwards. It was such a slow burn because one of the most common Asian slurs is calling somebody a yellow face. It's calling somebody yellow face. It was yellow face was the most common thing that you said to all Asian people. Like all white people said, you're just yellow face. And so that trope of yellow face that slur has been used countless times through history. And in Crazy Rich Asians, they tried to turn that slur on its head by using Coldplay's version of the song Yellow. They asked Coldplay for specific permission to use that song Yellow. Um, and Coldplay to be sung in Chinese. They wanted to do a cover sung in Chinese.
I totally forgot about
Yes.
that. Yeah, that's
Yes.
cool.
So they were trying to turn this idea, this slur, this ethnic
Oh,
slur.
and Golden. Okay, yeah.
Right. So then so many times throughout my
Oh my God, I can't believe I never made that connection. That's
I know.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
through my adolescence, I kept on hearing about people saying that you should say golden instead of yellow as a way to like recapture that ethnic slur. And there's actually a children's book which was written by by the Instagram director of fashion partnerships, Ava Chen. And Ava actually wrote this book called I Am Golden it's a children's picture book to basically say it is important for you to be proud of your Asian identity. So the song is all about that. The song is all about overcoming all of the slurs and all of the stereotypes that Koreans themselves place on women. There's this whole stereotype that women have to be weak and submissive or like meek, like sort of so feminine. And the lyrics specifically are against that. They're saying, I was considered a problem child. I was considered to be problematic. And now I'm soaring. Now I'm going to really find my voice. And now we're all going to be golden together. And so the more I listen to that song and the more I think about the character arc of Rumi, who literally in the movie had demons. And that's exactly how they used to interpret like women who tried to be powerful or strong in Korean society was that, oh, they must be possessed by a demon, or they must be possessed. And I think in Japanese it's called a kami. I don't remember what the Korean word is for demon, but anyway, I do remember that
Tommy
like,
is God.
oh, I think
I think you mean Oni.
Oni, that's right,
Yeah.
Oni. So this idea of demonology, and like people being possessed by spirits is very, very true to the Asian culture.
Yeah.
But the fact that this movie is so symbolizing, like it's so speaking to little girls, especially, like that's what the stars have said and what the creators have said, is that
Mm,
we want to have a movie that's for little girls to see themselves in and to see how they could be powerful and see how they could find their creative voice, even though they're always labeled as a problem child and as a rebel. So
hmm
that's why this movie continues to hit. Are you tearing up?
Yes.
Are
Sorry. I just had to I just was thinking, oh my
you
God.
actually getting emotional,
Yeah.
Mr. This movie didn't really do anything beyond
Listen,
thinking that
listen,
it
I
was
say
like the
this,
music was good.
dude, I say this every time, and you do this every time. But I always come into these episodes like, I don't know what I'm gonna say about this movie. I kind of had general feelings about it, whatever. But then you just break it down, like what exactly it's doing. And for this in particular, like I had a general idea of everything you're saying about what it was promoting. But when you put it like that, it was like that's just really beautiful. So
Yeah.
thank you. I really and now I can respond to that because I definitely have a lot of thoughts. But you could continue.
Yeah. Well, I will say that people, as like me, people love the music. They love, love, love the music. And so there's tons and tons of TikToks of people actually performing a cover of Golden. And I will say that what feels really, really wrong to me about some of the people performing the covers is that some of the K-pop girl bands out there are really fall into that stereotype that I hate so much. They're all these like plastic surgery, big-eyed, incredibly skinny, like they fit into this whole Korean stereotype of uber. Like Koreans are very rigid about their beauty standards. They're very rigid about like how women should behave and girls should behave. So they've just got these, and they're really ruthless about it. They're like kind of awful about it. They fat shame people. They make fun of people who have tattoos. They make fun of like, women. They're always suggesting that you get plastic surgery. So they want your eyes to be huge and they want your like chins and noses to be like perfect and like your noses to be tiny. And so whenever I've seen a couple K-pop girl groups performing Golden where they look like this stereotype, and I feel like it's wrong. I like it when there are these independent creators online who are performing Golden. The high notes are brutally hard to hit, but I like the ones I like to see the spectrum of girls and women. And there's also a lot of guys who can sing falsetto, which because they're hitting the highest note of A. And so I like to see the spectrum of people performing Golden and not those fuck. As you can tell, I have a lot of feelings about that Asian stereotype of femininity because I feel so brutalized by it.
Yeah.
And even though I think K-pop Demon Hunters is not that much of a departure from it, I do think that it's trying to break down those barriers a little bit. It's trying to say you can be all kinds of things and you can be golden and
Yeah.
you can succeed.
Yeah.
This movie has become an unexpected sleeper hit in my head.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
ahead. Go
That's
ahead.
that totally makes sense, and I really resonate with that. And in a way, I think you said it just now, where you said like it breaks the barriers a little bit. And I think that the animation definitely aids to that
Yes, that's what I
aspect.
wanted to
I
talk to you about.
Yeah, because I really appreciated. I just realized while I was watching this movie, I was like, I don't know how many movies I just see like Asian animated characters, like just
Yes.
Asian models, like models as in character models, like this. The last time was probably Turning Red, and I really love Turning
Yes.
Red.
Yes.
But the way that all the characters and even the fans and people who are kind of like side characters and are not as prominent as the three main beautiful K-pop stars, like everybody had just a certain look that,
A
felt
distinct
very,
personality.
yeah,
Yes.
distinct personality and representative look about them that made it feel like it was representative of like, Korean people and what,
Yes.
what Korean people actually look like.
Yeah, people
Um
love the Asian grandmas, the aunties,
yeah,
like with
yeah.
their visors and like dressed in their like tourist outfits. It's like
Hmm.
people keep on calling that out again and again. But go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I think it just did a great job of representing of Korean people, but also like Korean culture. I from what I could tell and from the little things I've seen, like every aspect of Korean culture that is introduced is faithful to what, that is actually like to experience or to watch.
Yes.
I mean, already we talked about like the K-pop songs and the personas. I mean, especially when the boy band comes on, they also have like the exact um counterbalance, that has the same dynamic as like K-pop groups do. And then little things like, the game show or like
Yes. The game show was great.
or like you said, the what's the word for the old ladies again?
Ajuma.
Ajima. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Ajimas. And the fans. The beginning montage of the fans saying what they love about the K-pop
Yes.
stars, that felt
Yes.
so real.
Yes.
It's actually pretty I was pretty surprised that as much as I usually hate when it's kind of like an expository way to introduce the characters, but since it felt so true to how fans would like describe their favorite
Yeah.
artists, like
Yeah.
it actually felt very authentic, to hear
Yeah.
all those fans and then the crying guys, like they came back over and over again, which is funny. Um, yeah, so
I wanted to
you know,
talk a little bit more to go a little techie about the animation
sure.
thing because
Um,
you've taught me so much about how these things are shot and filmed. So when we talked about Kung Fu Panda
Yeah.
two, I said that I was really amazed at how perspective lent to the humor of the plot and the movie itself. So, like, for example, the chase scenes were so funny, but when your camera perspective suddenly lifted up
Yeah.
to see like these people like doing these ridiculous chase scenes through the village,
Mm.
then it got even funnier once the perspective changed. And you explained to me that there is now this sort of 3D appreciation there was a 3D way of capturing animation. Is that what you said correctly? Am I?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, just based off that, they just create a 3D space. They
Yes.
create an environment, with backgrounds and
Yes.
their characters, and
It's
they
not flat at all.
no, it's not flat. It's actually like a virtual space, that they
Yes.
create. So
Yes.
then they could place their camera in that virtual space and get all the angles they need, but also they can stretch a lot more about how they film it because it's all virtual and digital.
Right.
So
I want to contrast that, by the way, to the cartoons that I grew up watching. Like
yeah,
I grew up watching Looney Tunes. I grew up watching Disney animation, and as beautiful and painterly as some of those works of animation could be, they still felt very flat. You were not getting, do you know what I mean? Like if you were watching Elmer Fudd chasing Bugs Bunny, you were suddenly not getting rapid fire perspective shifts, POV shifts. You know what I mean? Like you were just watching, it was like watching a reel sort of unfold. There might
yeah.
be more of it.
Well,
I have to go back and see
actually,
it.
it's funny you mentioned that because I would argue Looney Tunes was probably the like animated work that like
Yeah.
made this possible
Yeah. Yes.
because they are the ones that uh
Roadrunner started it,
even
actually.
yeah, exactly, but
Yeah.
even with like the kind of now primitive like 2D cell style animation, like
Yeah.
as flat as it could be most of the time, like
Yeah.
they were super inventive with their jokes because their jokes would involve if way different perspective and POV changes. Like you would see Roadrunner like run all the way out
Yes.
like into
Yes.
space, but it's
Yeah.
like if you think about it, it's just a flat screen. So
Yeah.
they
It's
were
still
way
not
more
as
inventive with how they
right.
use their techniques.
Yes, it was not where it is today,
No.
but it was definitely the beginning of that.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, you think about how far we've come in terms of being able to make an animated movie feel very 3D. So,
Yeah.
the reason why I wanted to talk about animation, by the way, is because one of the things that overcame my initial resist, this is sort of a question I want to explore, which is whether or not Sony Animation is coming after Pixar's crown. You know,
Oh,
so
yeah.
like I'm really interested actually in this question, and I don't think that they're anywhere close, but there's definitely a perception out there that Pixar is going like this and that Sony might be going like this. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to explore this question a little bit because the one thing that got me past the K-pop Demon Hunters is not for me, right? Is that somebody said, "Oh, it's by Sony Animation." Right. So it's by Sony Animation. And they said the same people who brought you Spider-Verse. Okay. And Spider-Verse has such a powerful impact on me. And the reason why Spider-Verse had such a powerful impact was because it was so gorgeous visually and it hit its emotional beats so well. And those are the two things, Eric, that you and I talked about when we did our deep dive into Pixar. We said that Pixar just knew how to tell a story. By the way, I'm not saying that K-pop Demon Hunters rises to the level of like Finding Nemo, for example. I still think it's like, not quite at that level. But anyway, after hearing that Sony Animation was involved, that promotion from the same studio that brought you Spider-Verse into the Spider-Verse, it actually worked on me. I was like, oh, this isn't some dumb little, you know, K-poppy poppy kids cartoon. You know what I mean? This isn't like some little throwaway cartoon. This actually was put out by people who really wanted to tell a good story. So that's why I sort of pushed a little, hey, let's watch K-pop Demon Hunters together. That and the fact that it was just so dominating the cultural zeitgeist, it was appearing everywhere in
Yeah.
my feeds.
I have to
So
stop myself when I'm remembering that, they did Spider-Verse, so we should like kind of believe in them because but it's also the same studio that did the Emoji Movie. So
yes, I
like
know.
you have to remember that like it's just, it's a lot of hit or misses. That's a great that is probably the most insane spectrum of good to bad I've ever seen.
Yes.
But you have to remember that because those are possibilities.
Yes,
And
those
and
are
I
the
and despite like how Pixar's dipping, like they are more consistent, like in
yes.
general. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is why it's an open question for me about whether or not Sony Animation is coming for Pixar because they don't obviously have, if they could put out the Emoji Movie, wasn't the Emoji Movie a huge hit though?
Uh, yeah, but because it got people talking, I think.
Yeah.
And kids could see it, and it wouldn't make a difference, but anybody who was older would recognize how awful that movie
Yes.
was.
Well, I feel like we should come back to I feel like we should come back to this question, about whether or not anyone's taken Pixar's crown, like in a number of years, because I think the Sony Animation that not there are a couple hiccups with Sony Animation. Number one, they've put out things like the Emoji Movie, and number two, the process, as I told you, the process of developing Spider-Verse, as you and I have discussed, has apparently been totally chaotic and awful.
Yeah.
So is it Phil Lord and Christopher Miller? Am I getting their
Hmm.
names right? They are apparently horrible. They change their minds all the time. They don't know how to work with animators effectively. They're
Yeah.
constantly asking for new renderings and and so they're apparently nightmare creative talents, but yet I think that there is some considerable talent at Sony. And the reason why I think that is at Sony Animation in particular is because Maggie Kang, the director of this movie, she worked with Chris Applehands, and he co-directed it. He's a white dude, but she has been developing this story for 7 years. 7 years she has been developing the story. She was so passionate about it, and she kept on shopping it and wanting people to take it on and developing it further and further. And she did not have a lot of experience with animation. And she actually said that it was so much harder to think of this as an animated because she said that with live action, you have a script, you have a director of photography, and you go and you shoot the movie based on the script that you have, and in the best case scenario, you don't really deviate that much. But she said here, she finally, got a hit in terms of getting this movie made. She talked to the head of character animation at Sony Animation, and he was excited by the idea, and he had all kinds of ideas about how the characters, he's so number one, I love that this is a job title, Eric. I love that there's a job title that exists where I am the head of character animation for some, do you know what I mean? Like that's such a great title. Like I am responsible for thinking about how these people move and how they interact with their environment and how their animation expresses their personality and their characters. So I love that dimension of animation. I really do. And then I love the stories that they told because I, in particular, thought that the dance sequences, the performances, were so well animated. I thought they were beautifully, beautifully animated. And so they said that their first step when they were developing the animation for the movie was first they had these two incredible visual artists develop all of these renderings of the characters and the environment. So like all of these art ideas, and then based on the art idea, then they built the story out even more. And Maggie Kang said that they had to change the script so many times because once they saw the motion of the animation and what they could do, they actually felt that they needed to add more emotion here, or add more suspense here, or add more humor here. But it was so fascinating to me how the story and the animation were like working hand in hand, and also the fact that animation can be so, so beautiful. So I love the fact that they started with this visual artwork that blew them away and that opened up all these possibilities. Then they elaborately storyboarded everything, and
Yeah.
then they brought in sort of all the animation that made it like come alive, which I think they did a really beautiful job.
Anybody on the crew like of this film should be like immensely proud if they aren't
Yeah.
already with like how well it all came together at the end of the day, and to make me who doesn't enjoy K-pop music that much, like to create a symphony and a performance like in this scene where they're performing that song. I
Yes.
think and there were multiple songs that I liked. Golden was like okay, I was like it was catchy, it was it wasn't my favorite. Funny enough, my favorite um performance and like song and animation together was really small. It was like the part where they're on the train and they're like
Uh-huh.
fighting the demons on the train and they're
Yeah.
singing Takedown while they do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because I love things that are more hype and like, sick. And that was probably the most hype moment for me because the takedown song was really like hard hitting. Like the
Yeah.
Zoe was rapping really cool. And there was some story. There was a lot of tension between, the band members during that point, and also visually, it was just such a cool fucking scene. Like it
It
was
was a
like
great
they're
scene.
they're in they're on a bridge in a like I was just in New York and like on the subway and like in a bridge, so I felt like I was really there. And other than that, I really loved the the like the ballad with like Rumi and Jin somebody Jin
Jinu, Jinu,
Jinu
Jinu. Yes,
Jinu,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that song's
Um
called Free. That's my second
yeah, and
favorite.
that would like, and it's funny because you would think I would hate that shit. It's like so sappy and like romantic,
Yeah,
but I actually their whole dynamic was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
yeah,
And the song was really great, and it actually felt pretty emotional. It felt like they were connecting.
yeah.
But all of the it's just it's just clear to me that the most amount of effort and love and passion went into those parts of the movie, and for what it's worth, they were just so entertaining to watch.
Yes.
um and I mean, we'll go into this later, but I think like I was hoping that like the overarching plot and the story would have a bit more of that credence and effort, but like they were able to just make it work, and that was like enough for me, to enjoy the movie. Um, and going back to like favorite sequences and things like that, like specifically for Rumi and Genu, um, I've seen I usually get annoyed at the trope of seeing your crush, like seeing like getting the, oh, that person's so hot, like scene. And because a lot of times it can just be cliche, and especially if I'm already not liking the movie, it's just like hammering it home that I just don't like these people, I don't like these characters, whatnot. But I think this movie has my favorite instance of that in the last like decade, probably. Like because it's just so funny. I rewatched it today, and like they see the Saja boys, and like most of them, like they have like dyed hair, like crazy looks, and like they're already gushing. The girls are already gushing over it. Like Mira and Zoe are already gushing over the Saja boys.
Yes.
And Rumi's like, I'm above all this, but then sees Genu in the behind, with his black hair and like this whole like normal kind of hot boy looking look. And she just has this face that is just like, I don't know. They must have chosen like a million different faces for her to have in that
Yeah.
scene, and that was just the funniest one. And she held it through the whole scene, well, like up until like he bumps her in the shoulder, and like she just falls, and like they purposefully didn't animate her limbs. Like she's just like a cardboard cutout that goes like this, and and then when
To see
like
you reenact it is really
no,
funny.
and she thinks he's gonna help her up, but like then he just like brushes off his shoulder and says like, "Watch where you're going." Like, and so funny. And that really, since that was the introduction to both of them and their dynamic, like that's what I loved probably the most about the movie. Which made me sad
That's
that
unexpected
I know it's very unexpected.
because you're like Mr. Not rom-com.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'm more rom-com than I would on. I mean, but anyways, like I love their whole dynamic, and it made me sad that they actually didn't kiss at the end. I figured that was coming. But
That's
yeah,
not, I don't think that that would be done in Korea.
ugh, yeah. Okay. See, that's another thing about this movie is that it's it's like it's an American movie. It's like it's in English. It's made by Sony, and clearly like. I think it seemed like a lot of Korean Americans worked on this movie. And I do wish that since it was so Korean, and there was just Korea written all over it, I do wish there was a little more of like, them speaking Korean. Like it was in the lyrics, it was in the songs.
It is
Um,
in the songs, yeah.
but for particularly for the game show scene, it felt very out of place because those game shows, man, like they're crazy. Like, and
Yeah.
they go the Korean language. I mean, just like when it's in Korea, it's like a whole different thing, and they are in Korea. So, it felt a little. Sometimes it just felt out of place to hear just like super American accents,
Yes.
like. But obviously it's for a more palatable. audience, and for a more universal story, and not and they're going to go with, what's the most universal language. Um, but in a way that kind of highlights some of what I was missing about the movie. It's like I was actually trying to remember this term because I took a contemporary Korean culture class when I was in Korea. And one of the biggest things we learned while we were in that class was this term Hallyu, the spread of Korean culture like in the world, and how it's absorbed by people who are super fascinated with Korean culture and become obsessed with it in a way. And K-pop is like the top um proponent of that idea. And something I just saw while I was browsing through my old, class notes was that Korean people don't own that. Like it's just something that people take and absorb, and a lot of Americans especially like will get obsessed with like K-pop. Um, so like with by mentioning that, I'm just trying to say like, that's the most popular, the most um easy to like get behind and like understand, and as a result you're maybe not as free to take a lot of risks, and that was very evident in the plot too for me. Like it was very simple, it's just like they're oh, she's half demon but she can't tell her friends, and they gotta do the honeymoon, like it just some things were not developed, I felt, enough like to make me really emotionally invested in those parts. But ultimately, that's not really what they were doing. What they were doing was just creating like a fun um, experience, and that included those elements. And like I just get what I understand about K-pop stars. It's like they're huge mega stars. Like people are obsessed with these people, and people are now definitely obsessed with these characters. Um, so much that it can be suffocating. I mean, especially for those artists. And I think it's really beautiful that it ended with the K-pop stars like meeting fans, and and it's all about the fans. Like that was actually something that I really liked. But obviously you're not gonna get that much of a glimpse of like what's really difficult difficult to talk about. And sorry, I keep going on, but
No, that's
like just
okay.
one last thing is like the demons were a way that I felt could be more developed in that direction. Like I really loved that people towards the end were being hypnotized to basically being like nihilists, like they were getting collected to this arena, and even the band members themselves like caught up in it, and just thought like, I'm never gonna get over this. Like this is all that's gonna be like, there's never gonna be anything after, I can't get over this. I think that's a really powerful idea, especially right now. I mean, like people are feeling that cynicism all over the world.
Right.
Um, and I wish that was kind of expanded upon more, because instead I was left with like, okay, so people are being kidnapped, like their souls are being taken, so they're just gone. So, and I even watched over the movie because I remembered that, and I watched over and I just checked at the end of the movie, like, so did that ever get resolved? Like, did people come back, or are they just dead now? Like
They're
their
dead,
souls
I
are gone.
think.
Yeah, I think they're dead. And like there was a little scene where it's just like, multiple missing people. And then there was just like, okay, we don't care about them anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Maggie Kang actually spoke. She said that one of her chief inspirations for this was Bong Joon-ho, because she felt that she felt that his movies could be both dark and funny. So even though she made this movie to be lighthearted and funny, like to have many funny moments, she felt that this idea of shame, and I do think that the fact that the demons feed on shame, which is a central issue with the Korean character. They feel like the Korean cultural character is so deeply based on shame, like you can't admit what's really going on. You can't. So I could totally see where she was getting that from, because the shame thing with the demons is really big. But I can see why you didn't feel it, because I don't think that I'm not sure that you're motivated by shame in the same way that others are, the Korean people are.
well, sure, I can get behind that idea of why I didn't really like that, but I think it's just because I really love that, the way you put that, and I think that that was introduced.
Yes,
It just
fully.
wasn't fully realized.
Yes.
And like I think a way that could have been done maybe is like not to have people missing or dead or whatever, like people when people's souls are taken, then they just become husks of who they were,
Yeah,
and they become these like people who exist in Korea or in the world, like who are just depressed and lonely and like, alienated from
right.
society. Like that's the real harm. Um,
Yeah,
and it just
that's
would
a
have been
great
nice.
idea.
Yeah, it just would have been nice for that to have
You should
happened.
send
And
that to
then
Maggie.
at the end, and at the end when they do the honeymoon, like it's redistributed to everybody. It's like and it's in the form of loving these K-pop stars. And
I love
yeah,
that.
so
You should
yeah.
send that to Maggie.
Um
Maggie.
yeah. And because they were already creating this whole persona of these K-pop artists being like superheroes. And again, if you're gonna like everybody's doing like a we're superheroes, like we're gonna save the day, but also like, fix what's wrong with ourselves. Like there if you're gonna do that, then again you have to do some hero shit. Because
Yeah.
everybody's doing it now. There's still those qualifications.
Yes, I think that that's a really intriguing idea. I didn't feel that absence as much for a lot of different reasons, but I think that that is a really intriguing idea to build that out more. To sort of build out like what does it mean to lose your soul and what does it mean to get it back? And the other thing is,
Yeah.
can you also be true to your cultural identity and heritage while also being part of the modern world? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like how
yeah,
much
yeah.
how much of tradition and your faith and your beliefs sort of survive into this incredibly modern, futuristic world? Like somebody was pointing out that there are so many elements of Seoul, the city of Seoul, that are incorporated into the movie. So they specifically called out Seoul Tower, where you said that you had visited in real life, but then the person added, "Oh, but by the way, there's no giant stadium there with like a sci-fi looking stadium there."
Yeah.
Like they felt like they had to clarify that because they were like, "Okay, there's some parts of the movie that aren't accurate." So anyway, my point is that I think that the movie was trying to blend old and new Korea, old and new culture. I think that it was trying to critique Korean culture to a certain extent, the fact that everyone's embraced these K-dramas and these K-pop bands, without really interrogating what that really means. You know what I mean? Like they love the music, they love this, whatever, but I think that there's a commentary on Korea, which is that in your quest to be for global domination, global cultural domination, like what have you held on to about your identity, your Korean identity? Like what gets incorporated into the modern identity? So there's one theme where you say, oh, okay, you can have a different idea of what a woman is or what a girl is. And then there's another part of it was like, yeah, but we are motivated by shame. Like that's our demon. Like I think I told you the story before, but when there was this shooter at the University of Virginia who was Korean, American, mentally disturbed, and he killed multiple people. For the weeks afterwards, people were reporting on the phenomenon that all the Koreans in that Virginia area were apologizing for him. They were like apologizing to their neighbors, like, I'm really sorry that the shooter happened to have the same ethnic background as me. And everybody in America was mystified by this idea of shame and embarrassment about one of your own. And so that was what was really powerful to me about Jinu's character, is that he said to Rumi, the demon king feeds on shame. That's how he controls all of us. And so he was basically saying, there was a message there about Koreans not being so controlled by shame, but instead trying to overcome the worst parts of their cultural heritage. So I do want to talk about this is a little esoteric, it's a little bit obscure, but I wanted to talk about Derpy Tiger. Which you and I both loved. So there's this like spiritual character that appears, and he's just so beautifully rendered. He's like electric blue with these glowing yellow eyes, and he's also adorable. He's like fat. He looks like the school bus in Totoro, like, which you just want to like hug every time you see. And so the such an interesting cultural history there because. Eric and I have already talked about this, but I'm working on a piece of fiction which is based in part on Korean culture. And there's a tiger character, and I just could not figure out what his character was. Like I couldn't figure out, like I made him all noble and majestic, kind of like, Mustafa in The Lion King. Mustafa.
Mufasa,
Mufasa. I always get that. I always transpose it. Mufasa in The
big
Lion
fan.
King. But it just wasn't working out in the plot to have him that way. But anyway, all the Korean cultural historians who have pulled up commented on that tiger character in K-pop Demon Hunters say, they talk about how the tiger was such a huge part of Korean folklore, um, from especially around the Joseon dynasty hundreds of years ago. And even my copy of Korean folktales has a tiger on the cover because the tiger is such a prominent symbol. And the cultural historian said that in the beginning, the tiger was in the paintings, and in all of these folktales, he was this like super scary, very majestic, very serious creature. And then somewhere like in the 1500s, I think, or 1600s, then they started to always appear with a magpie, the bird. That bird was supposedly a magpie. And so then over time, over hundreds of years into the modern era, the magpie got more and more prominent, and the tiger got goofier and derpier looking over time in artwork. And the cultural historian said that the magpie was supposed to symbolize the power of the people, and the tiger was supposed to symbolize the oppression of the monarchy and of oppressors. And so, and all the people, and China, who was trying to conquer. And so, what's so interesting is that the magpie got more and more prominent because the Korean people have always been trying to claim their power. They've been trying to claim their power after so many years of being invaded by China, by the Mongols, by everybody around them, and Japan, especially concluding with the Japanese occupation. And so they've always been trying to assert their voice. They've always been trying to raise their voice. So the tiger and the magpie that appeared in the movie K-pop Demon Hunters was a symbol about this constant struggle between the power of the people, and then the power of like sort of evil, like this demon king, this like, this oppressor. And so I loved that detail. I loved the fact that the tiger character was put in there and that people were explaining its cultural significance. And I think that K-pop Demon Hunters is loaded with references like that mean a lot to people who want to learn more about Korean culture, the authentic historical Korean culture, and they want to understand it both in its modern context and both in its historical context. So that's all I have to say about the tiger. Although I love that character. As you know, I love all characters like that. So I loved Appa from Avatar.
Yeah.
I love like mysterious floaty creatures
Yeah.
that appear out of nowhere.
I really would have loved those characters to have a name. I don't know
Yeah.
why that's really weird that they don't have a name.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally as simple as Genu just calling them the name. Like,
Yes.
and that's because he knew them, so he would be able to call them a name. Um, and I'm trying to think like as to how what, the significance of those animals, like what they add to the story. And I'm struggling a little bit to kind of see that because they were
They were a
just
little
added.
tangential.
Yeah, they were just kind of added in there.
Yeah.
I will say I mean, there was the really, I actually, one of my favorite jokes, I think, where he was like, the hat was for the tiger, but the magpie wears it now.
I
And it's like, I didn't mean to give, like, he just stole the hat.
know.
That was funny,
Yeah, the tiger used to be the symbol of oppression, and
sure.
now and then it evolved into this derpy, like in literally in the later Korean paintings where tigers appear, their eyes are crossed and they're like smiling really foolishly. So
Mm.
it's supposed to, and I think the fact that it was so derpy in K-pop Demon Hunters is saying we agree with that. Like we agree that the tiger is just this derpy character, and that
It
it's
was
really
also
the
terrifying, I will
yeah.
say.
Well, it's the people.
Like,
It's the power of the people is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, yeah.
But by the way, Netflix has a whole merch line around K-pop Demon Hunters because why not make as much money out of it as you possibly can? And uh, um, people are so excited that the plushie of the tiger, he has his own hat now, which is called the gat.
Oh,
It's called a gat or a gat. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's GAT. But the hats that the Saja boys wear and that the magpie wears, that's called the gat, and everybody
yeah,
wants their own hat.
that's
They
funny.
they think that those hats are super
I mean,
cute.
how did they survive? If they got rid of all the demons, right? So why, and
I
are
don't
they
think I
demons?
I don't think they got rid of all the demons. I think that they sealed the
They expelled them like
they
from,
expelled them. Yes, they're
yeah,
permanently located in their world.
except the tiger and the bird because we just love them. So
Yes, that's exactly right. They were allowed to stay, or for some,
yeah.
they were
See,
given some sort of special
and
dispensation.
I think I'm being purposefully nitpicky. These are nitpicks, honestly. Like,
Yeah,
I gave it a 3.5. I feel like that is a decent score for a movie.
yeah,
But ultimately, like, these are nitpicks, and they didn't impede on my enjoyment. I just think it definitely would have made me enjoy it more, or it would have cemented it as like a real classic.
yeah,
And on top of things that, I didn't feel like were given as much thought or um development was Jinu's backstory was a little more elaborate than Rumi's. Like, he came from 400 years ago and he abandoned his family and he
yes,
still feels regret about that.
yeah. And he wants to be rid of those memories,
Yes.
but he realized that he actually he gave his soul to Rumi.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And comparatively, I didn't feel like I really was coming from the same place that Rumi was with her arc. It was like I have these shameful markings and that I can't show because Celine says not to. Celine? Who the fuck is Celine? Like, it's like we have like three scenes of her, right? And she's like in this scene where she's braiding her hair, and then she like is in the room with the stars, and she developed the K-pop group. And at the end, and then she just like is not seen for like 45 minutes, and then she comes back and is like, no, like you still need to hide yourself. And she's like, no, I'm done hiding, which is like very powerful scene. I love that
yeah.
because she's saying like, no, I'm
And you can't
fucking
even look at me. You can't look at all of me.
yeah,
You can't
yeah.
even look at me. Yes,
Really
yeah,
great. There are really great lines in that, but because I don't fucking know who this person is or like why she is important, it's like it just feels a little lopsided.
yeah.
And and
That wasn't an issue for me.
I totally understand that. It was
You
like,
know, like throughout, if you're a Korean female and all your life you have just people just judging you and telling you you need to be this, you need to be that, you need to be this, you need to be that. You know what I mean? Like so I understood Rumi without her having to tell me anything. You know,
yeah,
just
yeah,
the demon thing was just a that to me was just a really obvious symbol. Her being half demon was a really obvious symbol for all the ways that Korean women are picked at for not being the perfect Korean girl, you know? So,
hmm.
anyway,
I think
I-
again, these are great ideas. I
yes,
think I'm debating the execution, and that's fine.
yes, yeah.
That's fine.
I understand why and this goes back to the original point I made.
Yeah,
I did not see those same execution flaws. I didn't see them as flaws as you saw them because to me, the cultural understanding that I brought to this film
right, right,
on a
yeah,
very deep emotional level, Eric,
yeah,
filled in any story. I don't see any story execution gaps here or snafus. Although I appreciate all your points that you're making and all your nitpicks, I totally see them as valid. I'm just saying that I brought such a different experience to this viewing
yeah.
that it was really, really powerful for me, and I did not see the flaws. I gave it 4 stars, and so. The last thing I wanted to talk about was this whole idea about what a cultural phenomenon this movie is, you know, and Sarah keeps on saying over and over again to my favorite movie critic, Sarah. She keeps on saying to people, you need to get over the fact that you just need to get over. Netflix has been super clear that they are not a theatrical movie production company, you know? So, as much as
Are they,
directors,
sorry, do you know if they're going to release this in theaters? Because it should be in theaters, I think.
well, okay, so that's what I meant by starting on this topic.
Yeah.
There are so many fans out there who desperately want to see this in the theater. They desperately want to see this in the theaters. And so far, the only thing that they've gotten is that one weekend, it was 2 weeks ago, I think, they did a weekend of theatrical release sing-along version. And now Netflix has a sing-along version on Netflix. But for one weekend, they did performances all over the world, theatrical showtimes where people were invited to come and sing along to the movies. Those screenings sold out like that. Okay, people were like lined up to see them. They were crazy popular how quickly they sold out. So because they were so popular, people have been begging Netflix to release this. releases, like do a theatrical release. And Sarah keeps on saying every time this happens, she keeps on saying, I just don't know how many ways I can tell you this. Netflix is not interested in the movie distribution business. They're not. They're not interested in it. They will occasionally make a deal with a director, where a director says, I really want this to be theatrically released. And they'll say, okay, we'll do it for maybe 2 weeks. That's it. Like that's their maximum 2 weeks. And so Sarah said, why why do all the top tier talent directors, like Linklater, for example, why do they even sell their movies to Netflix? Why do they agree to sell their movies to Netflix if Netflix is not going to give them a theatrical release? Hitman is a perfect example of this. So Linklater sold Hitman to Netflix for something like $14 million. It might have been even more than that, no theatrical release whatsoever. So Sarah asked the Netflix executive, why do directors even agree to play ball if they're not going to do this? If they're not going to do a theatrical release? And the director says, the executive at Netflix says, every director or every creator who comes to Netflix, they all think that they're going to be the special snowflake that changes our minds about this. And nobody's going to change our minds about this. Nobody's going to change our mind for an extended theatrical release. So Netflix, in other words, is committed to their business model, whatever their fucking business model is. Whatever their model is, they're committed to streaming. That's it. That's what they do. They are a content distributor. And even though they are a movie production studio, they're just not in the business of theatrical release. You look really puzzled by this. Like, why
Yeah.
are they like this?
They're just giving up free money. Aren't they struggling like to make ends meet like as they are? I don't
Well, they
Also,
are,
why can't I don't understand.
from what I understand, Eric, the whole issue of selling your movie and trying to ensure that it gets a distribution vehicle of some, it's insanely complicated. So it's insanely complicated to work with the like associations or the corporations that own the theatrical release platforms
Yeah.
like the AMC's of the world, and whatever. It's really complicated to sell those rights as to who gets to show your movie. And
Yeah.
so in other words, Netflix is basically saying, we're going to cut out the middleman. Yeah, we're going to cut out the middleman of this whole distribution chain. We're going to cut out the middleman and we're going to pay for you. We're going to pay you a shit ton of money to make your movie. And for a lot of creatives, that's a big deal, right? They couldn't get their movies made because the studios would handle all of that. By the way, the studios would handle all of the distribution negotiations and all of the release. But Netflix is saying, we are going to cut out the middle move. We will finance your movie. We'll ensure that it gets made, but no, we will not guarantee a theatrical release. So it's not free money, it's headache saving. And but for fans who want to see some of these movies, especially K-pop Demon Hunters, which is such a fun movie to see in the theater, and it would be dazzling on the big screen. People loved their screenings, the sing-along screenings that happen. So I agree with Sarah. Like, why bother changing people's mind if they're not going to change it? You know what I mean?
Just I'm reacting to that. And I think that's the exact problem with capitalism and with these corporations. Like that's so antithetical to like what the movie is about also,
Right,
and
right, right.
that's shit. We don't have to settle for, oh, that's just not how they work. Like, or not what their business model is. Who gives a fuck? Like the fans want to see it. Um, and that actually pisses me off, honestly.
Yeah,
I
you seem kind of mad about it.
I am mad. That's like because it really isn't that complicated. I mean, and I know you mentioned these contracts and all that. Things can be renegotiated and like because ultimately what it boils down to is just handing a file over like to these theaters. Like
Yeah, that's true.
ship I'm shipping we're just gonna ship the movie. Like
Yeah.
that's how easy it is. Like and there's a reason, oh my God, I don't want to get too into this, but there's a reason why people pirate everything. Like and everything is pirate because that's the kind of the only freedom that people have to engage with this art. Like and it's huge on TikTok. And then the industry profits from that, and
Yeah.
that's why they don't crack down on it. So it's just baffling to me to hear something like that. And
Yeah.
it's exactly what's wrong with our business and also why theaters are failing. I mean, So what the fuck? That's crazy.
Yeah, well,
Um,
Ted Sarandos, the way that he just, I think that his philosophy behind this no theatrical release is that I think he's saying, I actually think he believes this. I think he was democratizing the movie watching process, because ticket prices were getting so high, like it was called, like they were reporting all these ticket prices, like it costs a family of four $100 to go out to a movie because the ticket prices and concessions were so, you know what I mean? So they were saying, by the way, they just did an article on Disney about this that's saying that now a Disney vacation has become unaffordable to anyone but the top 20% of this country, And so I think that Ted Sarandos said, well, we're going to make movies accessible to everyone. All you have to do is subscribe for this low price. But what he obviously failed to calculate, and everyone at Netflix, that business model fails to calculate, is that there is something very, at least you and I value this, Eric. There is something really special about watching a movie in a theater. Like I can't imagine watching Top Gun Maverick for the first time freaking on streaming. That was a great movie to see in the theater. The Lord of the Rings was a really powerful movie to see all three of those in the theater, especially Return of the King. Like it was, I knew people, I came back from the Return of the King completely dazzled by the way that like Mordor and, Minas Tirith were rendered on screen. So for a movie like K-pop Demon Hunters, I think that movie screams this would be a really fun communal experience. You know what I mean? For you all to go and invest in these characters and care about the hero's journey and care and sing along to the music, which is why the only conditions they would do it under is through the sing along, the sing along format that they did. But I think that movie screams out for the communal joy of a theatrical viewing experience. And I think that it's a bummer that Netflix is so wedded to its business model. Like, we're not in the business of
yeah.
theatrical
And
releases,
that's I yeah, and I think that's the exact type of thing we have to speak out against.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
and it reminds me, because I'm not really tapped into gaming culture, but I know a little bit about it, and I just, because I watch this very popular YouTuber, his name is Donkey, and he's like a critic of games, and he really gaming is like his the greatest, art form, and all, it's its own thing. But he played this clip one time of like the Microsoft or Xbox like executive. I forgot who it was. He's just known for, being the guy, the Xbox guy. He was on an interview, and they just came out with this new game. It was very divisive, or lots of people liked it, but lots of people didn't. Um, and he was just talking about it, and he was just saying, people tell us if you just made great games, then you wouldn't have like these issues, and that's just not how it works. There's
Right.
no world that Starfield, the game he was talking about, is an 11 out of 10, which is like so bullshit. Like the priority should be making good games. Like you should be focusing on putting out the best you can. And obviously nobody can succeed 100% of the time, but that's just how it works. So if we didn't have this crushing stupid ass business model, these wouldn't be issues, and it would be more free for everybody to see things how they want. And especially when the popularity of this movie is so explosive. Like that's just crazy to me. And it's funny that I just haven't thought about it because and I bring up Xbox because Netflix in and of itself is kind of like a trash machine. They put out trash. They put
They
like
put out so
fucking
much
Red
trash.
Notice bullshit
Yes,
ass
yes,
fucking
yes.
movie. Fucking Russo brothers dog shit movie that, it doesn't ever match up to Endgame. That's the shit that they put out. And that's what they're expecting to put out, but all of a sudden they get their hands on K-pop Demon Hunters. Oh, they want to see it in theaters? Well, we made all these other shit movies. It should be on the same tier as those movies. Like,
I
that's so
know.
shitty. Well, then what
It
the
is
fuck?
shitty. I know.
So,
It is shitty. I
sorry.
agree. I agree. But,
I could be done with that right there, but yeah.
I know. But at the same time, Netflix has also given, I'm not going to defend them on this front, but they have given many creators an opportunity to see their
Yes.
thing made.
Okay, sure.
Okay? That's a big deal. And
Great.
also, K-pop,
We should be so thankful. Ugh,
K-
sorry.
K-pop Demon Hunters has been so insanely popular, and its popularity is not going away anytime soon. And so now it has been officially reported that Netflix and Sony Animation are in talks to develop the sequels because the creator, Maggie
Yeah.
Kang, has said that she wants to tell the backstories of Mira
Oh, sweet.
and of Zoe. You know, so
Okay.
like she
Well,
has
thank
all
God.
kinds of, yeah, she wants to tell their backstories. She wants to, and she wants to continue working.
Yeah.
So the thing that's going on, the negotiations right now, and by the way, this is so funny that Sony finds itself in this position. Like these insane like business negotiations between like Sony and Marvel, like, okay, Tom Holland, if Tom Holland doesn't continue, if as we have to remove all, we'll sign him, but he cannot appear in your movies, and therefore he can't have any knowledge of Tony Stark because Tony Stark appeared in your fucking movies. And
Yeah,
you're just like, you're sitting here
yeah.
listening to these two studios negotiate, you're like following the
Yeah.
chatter, and you're just like, what the fuck? Just
Yeah.
tell the stories that the fans want to hear. You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
again, like the Marvel situation, it had to be so explosively popular that they
Right,
had to negotiate that.
right,
They had, and so again, public pressure, corporate
right,
domination.
right. So Sony Animation negotiating this with Netflix, right? You can for sure bet, I would be willing to bet any amount of money that Sony Animation will push if they sign a sequels deal for Mira's story or for Zoe's story, they are going to they're going to insist on a theatrical release, and Netflix is going to give them a bullshit 2 week
Yeah.
window of theatrical release. That's all they're going
Yeah.
to do. They're going to
Yeah,
commit to two
probably.
weeks, you know? And so fine, fine, whatever. I will totally happily be seated for the sequels. I would be really happy to watch more stories. I think that Maggie Kang did a great, great job. So pleased that she's a female director,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
she's a female creative. And the other thing that I'm really pleased about is that this movie is completely skyrocketing the career of EJ, who is the voice, the singing voice of Rumi. Everybody's, by the way, confused. People who are fans are not confused. So people who are fans of the movie know that EJ was the voice, singing voice of Rumi, and Arden Choi was the acting voice of Rumi. And so, and then Arden Cho also sings, like she's covered some of the songs. So it's very confusing. And then members of Twice were the voices of Mira and the singing voices of Mira and Zoe. But anyway, my point is that EJ has suddenly blown up because she was not only the singer, but she also wrote a lot of the songs. And so now her career, she's written for video games. She's written songs like original songs for video games. She's written original songs for animated series and for K-pop bands. And so now she's like all over the place and she's suddenly gone super, super viral. So I'm happy for the creatives that have seen their work, come to the
Yeah,
light of
yeah.
day. And I also, it's, as I said, I love being surprised at the movies, and I was really surprised by how much this movie meant to me. So overall, I'm super glad. Out of a week of really, really good movie watches overall, I actually think that this stood out as a highlight. So, yeah, that's it for me. Anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I didn't I liked this movie, guys. I liked it. Um, and I definitely don't, you know, I I'm offering I don't know why I'm about to explain this like I'm explaining to a 5-year-old, but criticism actually is, it's me engaging with the art form in a very respectful way. No, but I really liked a lot of things, and it does have sequel written all over it. Like
Yeah.
it's obviously gonna have a sequel, and I really hope it um now that it's so explosively popular, I hope it has the chance to actually deal with the deeper stories that are beneath the surface. And I think it would weirdly make more sense, I think, if the stories were better in the sequels, and because I mean, I felt like I was getting more from these side members sometimes. Like I really liked Mira. Mira was my favorite. And then Zoe too. Like the way that Danny Kim's character like just outlined what was wrong with them, like after seeing them, so funny. And there's so much room to explore that, and I'm very excited for that. Um, and yeah, I'm a little sad. I guess we're not gonna have the Saja boys anymore because I really well I
Soda pop.
well, okay, I don't because it was funny because I was thinking about sequels when I was scanning through the movie, and I was like, did they leave room for a sequel to happen? Because they closed
Oh, they
off.
did. Yeah.
Well, they closed off the demon world. So how's that going to come back? Like maybe
Does that
there's
have to
some.
be, maybe it has to be renewed? Isn't that what the thing is? because there are generations of demon hunters.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are generations of demon hunters. So clearly, the work of renewing the Hongmei, is it
Oh,
Hongmoon?
renewing. Yes. Okay. Sorry.
Yes, the work
I
of
forgot about
renewing the
that.
Hongmoon has to like these. I actually think that these female demon hunters might be a part of Korean history. I don't remember if that was part of my history lessons that I took. But anyway, my point is that I think that the Hongmoon has to be renewed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the Saja boys will return, but there will be some way in which they will return.
It would be awesome because I was gonna say, yeah, I really I liked them. They're such a great foil for the
Yeah.
main cast. It's such a great idea too. And they also had really good songs. Like Soda Pop was catchy.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of really great humor in this movie. I think that's what would make me entertain the most, other than like the songs being really well done. And especially that like everybody was catching on to Soulja Boy's like, popularity. Like they were all doing the dance and they were looking
Yes,
at their
soda
phone.
pop. Yes.
And
Even
I
BTS's videos, like BTS, all seven members just recently finished their military service, their mandatory military service in Korea. So
Okay.
this was a really, really big deal that all of them had to do their mandatory
Yes,
military
yes.
service. So
Yeah.
they all came back, and I think in one of their like social media posts, then I think is it RJ or RK or whatever? He's like
Yeah.
he goes like this. He goes, "My little soda pie." He feels like everybody, the whole world
They
went
could just
crazy.
perform that. It's just a really quick side note, but that would be such a good movie. The BTS in the military.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna make that or if they're already making that, but that would be really genius. But I really loved um that like their different looks too. The Saja like they had their normal K-pop presence, but then
Yes.
like their demon hats and all that, and their
Yes.
demon performance too was really cool. That
Yes.
song was really good. And I it was actually pretty incredible because that song at the end that they do is really good, but then they were upstaged by Huntrix. I feel like I always forget them. But like in particular the shot where they're like sort of angelic, it's just like all white and they're like floating in the air is
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just so much fun. Yeah, I really felt how energetic and lively all the art that went into this movie was.
Yeah. I
And
feel like you're
it does
liking
make me
this
more
movie more
excited.
after more. I think that our
Yeah,
conversation here has made you like this movie more.
that's how this podcast works. If you didn't know that, I agree. I gain a greater appreciation for art and movies and you. So that's how that works.
All right.
Welcome
Well,
to the Mom and Eric podcast.
that's a really good note to end on. I will just say that
Yeah.
I've made that point many times though, because with Kung Fu Panda, for
I will
instance,
just say I've already said that.
Kung
So,
Fu Panda 2, I was very skeptical and I actually ended up liking and appreciating that movie a
do you want
lot
me
more.
to? Okay, you were right. I don't know. You did this for bow. Yeah. Oh, wait, the bowing. Wait, remember that? Oh my God, never mind. Okay, yes.
Oh,
Anyways,
the
yeah,
bowing
when they're bowing
contest.
at the game show. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I feel like a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyways,
for anyone who for the few people who might end up watching this podcast episode, and maybe this won't make it into the clips or not, but I really, really hope that some of you out there will give K-pop Demon Hunters a chance. Especially if you like the sort of genre of like really, really funny animated movies. And I do think that there's so many funny, funny moments. And so many funny animated moments. Like I really resonated with what Maggie Kang said about animating the imperfections. So when they were all like bulgy eyed and like, not wearing their makeup and their costumes and stuff and wearing those silly pajamas, it just cracks me up that she made such a point of animating their imperfections. But anyway, I love this movie. I think that so many people would enjoy this movie, and I love the songs. And as always, Eric, this was just a pleasure to watch the movie with you, and also a pleasure to talk about it with you.
it was a pleasure. Thank you.
I love you.
Love you too.
All right. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you.